Hey everyone, Ryan Peterson here alongside Brian Houston. It's time for the second edition of Bryan and Ryan talking
Mm.
sports. I appreciate what do we have? We had some clicks, more clicks than I
Man,
expected.
we had I think the last time I looked was like 25. And I-
We're tearing it up.
and my parents no longer are alive, so I know it's not mom and dad. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so these are legit clicks, is what he's
maybe,
saying.
maybe. So happy Labor Day. We're doing this on Monday. Happy Labor Day.
Yeah, same to you. And we have decided this will kind of be our deal. We're going to try to do these on Mondays, kind of getting to look back at the weekend that was in sports, and especially with football season about to start. That should be fun. And then looking at the week ahead. So,
And
Brian,
we'll
go ahead.
post these on Tuesday morning early, so you'll have them by breakfast. Now,
Awesome. I know everyone's going to be sitting there waiting for these to be
absolutely.
posted. Brian, we were talking before we started recording, so much to talk about. Really, we are about to, we have so many sports going on, but with football about to start. One of the big things I know you wanted to talk about, and it really kind of ties in with college football getting ramped up. And I even had friends texting me if they had seen it, and then you had asked me, Kirk Herbstreit. I think he does a great job for ESPN and ABC College Football. For those of you not familiar, but if you know football, you know Kirk Herbstreit. Lead color commentator for college football. He had an emotional response to basically a roundtable Zoom discussion about race reconciliation, Black Lives Matter. And look, I don't care where you stand on the issues or what you think the real problem is. If you weren't moved by what Kirk said, I don't know what to tell you, because he had me in tears, because the sincerity that Kirk had with what he said. And I agree with them 100%. And it obviously affected you as well, Brian.
Well, I was watching it and I saw it live, and they had just had 6 or 7 college players on a Zoom call that they had taped earlier, talking about things that I've talked to some athletic directors around the country about here recently. Kids having to worry about keeping their hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. The kid from Texas saying that, I always wore some kind of a Longhorn shirt that showed that I was part of the team, just so that it would keep the police from, just thinking I'm just anybody. Another kid talking about having, automatically being looked at suspiciously because he was wearing a hoodie and had Nike sweats on, and, being looked at suspiciously. And then in the reaction, Herbstreit coming on and literally breaking down.
Yeah.
First of all, it caught me by surprise, because going into that, what he was talking about, you didn't see that coming. But then he starts mentioning those examples that he had just heard, and he was like, "What are we doing?" And we've got to do better. And then from that point on, he had just lost it,
Yeah.
and stayed red-eyed the rest of the show. So Maria Taylor was in the shot; she was crying. It's like you said, if you're not moved by that, somebody needs to check your pulse. And we've got to do better. If people are being, and obviously people are being treated that way. If I had a kid, a teenager, a youngster in college, and I had to worry as a parent about my son being out in a car and getting pulled over, and that being a super dangerous thing for that kid, I mean, I can't imagine living that way as a parent. So I thought it was fantastic. And I hope that people, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, it's on the ESPN website. You can go back. It's 2.5 minutes, and it's one of the most moving things I think I've ever seen. So from that standpoint, that was one of the highlights of the weekend for me. Um, so that's it.
Yeah, very, very powerful. And as I told my friend that had texted me about it, because her and I have had many discussions on race and racial reconciliation, and I told her the thing that really moved me more than anything was how real it was. This wasn't trying to be PC. This wasn't trying
Mhm.
to say what everyone wants to hear. He was genuinely moved to tears.
Yeah.
And, I have felt that in my heart. So, yeah, very powerful stuff. And if we were all like Kirk Herbstreit, I think we'd be much better off, and having that kind of emotion and empathy, as he said so well. Um,
Absolutely.
so that's a serious tone, but let's have some fun here and talk about some more exciting, uplifting stuff. College football did return on a smaller platform. Weren't really any games that I was really excited about. I did kind of flip a couple on, but this upcoming weekend we have some power conferences getting going, the Big 12 and the the ACC. Big 12, everybody's playing except TCU because their game with SMU had to be postponed because of a COVID outbreak. Did you watch any games this weekend, Bryan? And what did it, we had talked last week about what's it going to be like without the fans. What were your reactions to watching it on TV? How did it look?
Well, first of all, I watched it all.
Okay.
I just stayed glued to it on Saturday. It's the first normal feeling day that I've had, and I can't tell you when. But the thing that was so surreal to me, first of all, was seeing all the coaches in masks or gaiters. We saw the officials, a lot of the officials wearing masks. We saw electronic whistles. We saw disinfecting of footballs. I mean, it's just the whole thing. We saw 25% capacity in the stadiums. I watched a lot of the Army game against Middle Tennessee State because Eastern Kentucky and Marshall was a disaster. It was 21-0 in the first quarter, and I said, I'm out. So I watched Army, and Army was crushing Middle Tennessee State, but the cadets were all in the stands, social distance, all had masks on, but they were jumping up and down, and the atmosphere was almost like normal, except when you take the wide shot from the end zone and you saw just one half of the stadium was what looked like filled, but the atmosphere was great. The best game to me, there were not good games for the most part, except for the SMU Texas State game, which was about as unexpected as I could have anticipated because SMU was a huge favorite in the game. They got a senior quarterback coming back, and I just thought they'd go down to San Marcos and just wear Texas State out. And Texas State played great. We saw an Odell Beckham style catch by one of their receivers. It was the most entertaining game. SMU hangs on, wins at 31-24. Memphis that evening, it was okay. I did flip over on ESPN3 and watch a little bit of SFA and UTEP. And I don't know if you saw the protest, but the SFA players during the game took a knee and took a delay of game penalty in a protest against social injustice. And
I did not see that. I know because I had talked to a couple of friends that are SFA alums, and they did not bring that up. They had said that they actually started the game pretty well, and then they lost it late. But no, I did not know that they did that.
Yeah. So you go back on Twitter, you can see the clip where they did that, and it was obviously planned out, and they did it at a particular point. I think it was in the first quarter, while during the game, and took a delay of game penalty. But that was their way of having a unified front and having a protest on that. The game we won't be able to talk about is one that really interests me, and that's the game that's going to be the Labor Day primetime game, and that's going to be BYU and Navy, because those are two stout programs. The one thing I do know, and you saw it with the Army the other day, is that these guys running the triple option, you play them game one, and in a lot of cases, these games were thrown together. Schedules got blown up when conferences started pulling out. And so a lot of these games were thrown together like that Army game was on Saturday, where all of a sudden the team's looking up, and the first game they got to play, they got to prepare for the triple option. And so they made it very tough. It's going to be really interesting to see how BYU handles Navy's triple option tonight. So, but I loved it. It was so great to see college football. And it gives you hope that we're going to get through this year and actually have a college football season. Now, at the same time, watching the game, and then they have the Sports Center, Matthew, I can't even remember his name, that's one of the anchors on the sports desk. And Tennessee's got 44 players that test positive or get caught in contact tracing, and they can't hold their scrimmage. So what you're going to see, and we saw it with high school football Friday, we saw a ton of games get played, but we saw a handful of games that had to be canceled, or games that were canceled 3 or 4 days before the ball game, and suddenly now a team is scrambling to find a game anywhere, anytime, any place, just to fill their date. That's what football is going to be like this fall. All the big conferences, the power conferences, you're going to find situations where you'll have the majority of your schedule will get played, but somewhere there's going to be a Tennessee in there that's going to come up testing positive, and they're going to be testing 24 hours before the ball game. And if anybody tests positive, that kid's out of the game. So it's going to be wild this year. It's just going to be crazy. But I'm so thankful to see it happening, and I just hope they can get through a full season. There are going to be hiccups, I know that, but I just hope we can get through most of the year. I know you're excited about NFL coming up on Thursday night. I'm excited too, but I know you particularly are. I'm a big Cowboys guy, which has been really bad for the last 25 years, for the most part. But I do like to watch the NFL, and I'm going to watch it obviously until my wife shoots me and reclaims the television. So I'm looking forward to Thursday night for sure because of what took place over the weekend.
Yeah, and Thursday night we have, one of the Texans and, our East Texas guy, Patrick Mahomes, who is the biggest star and face of the NFL now. So I guess, I want to talk about Patrick real quick. So his first year was his second year technically, but his first year as a starter was crazy. He throws 50 touchdowns, record-breaking pace. But then the funny thing is his second year as a starter, he has an injury. His stats aren't as good, but then they win the Super Bowl. So I guess where does Patrick go from here? Like, can he be even better?
Tom Brady.
It's kind of scary to think about him being better than what he's been in 2 years.
Tom Brady. He'll just keep winning. That's the thing. The scary part of this is he's going to get better. He's just a baby right now.
Yeah.
So he's going to be able to learn how to read defenses better. Everybody can improve something. And so as long as I just think the knowledge of game is going to be what's going to be the transformative thing for Mahomes going forward. Just as he gets more experienced, he still may play wild and take those crazy shots that nobody else would possibly throw, but that's what makes him Patrick Mahomes. But I think it's going to be really fun to watch him as he matures. Already we're seeing his maturity and the way that he has stepped up, and he's taken a very vocal stance on the racial situation. For a kid that young to do that right out of the chute in your career is pretty impressive. Getting married now, he's gotten engaged. We're just seeing the guy grow up, and I watched the kid since he was in high school, and it's cool.
Ownership with the Royals.
Yeah, it's just incredible when you think about it. I sat there and watched every high school game this kid played for the 2 years he started at quarterback, and to see what's happening right now, it's kind of surreal. But I'm just thrilled for him. And then you see what happened with DeShaun Watson over the weekend.
Yeah, DeShaun Watson. The NFL is in really good hands with some of their young star quarterbacks. Patrick, is already the face of the league, and he seems to be doing everything right. DeShaun Watson's been one of my favorites. I remember him in 2017 as a rookie after Hurricane Harvey had come in, and he's taking his first paycheck, and he was giving money to people at the stadium that had lost everything in the hurricane. He hasn't done anything in the NFL yet, and he's already giving away his money to help others. He has such a good heart. He started his own charitable foundation. And then it was so cool. He signs a huge contract extension over this past weekend. They surprised him with a Zoom meeting. Because for those of you that don't know, there's obviously, because of social distancing, they're not having normal press conferences. So these teams, they do like Zoom calls. The reporters will call in on Zoom and ask DeShaun or whoever the athlete is a question. Well, they surprised DeShaun with his whole family. I believe they were in Florida, big group of them. And who knows how long it had been since he had seen him, since he'd been in camp. And they were there to just celebrate and cry and congratulate him.
Here's the cool thing too. Not only did his family jump in on that Zoom call, but Dabo Sweeney got on the call and Zoom bombed him and asked him a question. His high school offensive coordinator got to him. I forget who else was one of
It
the
was
people.
pretty much "This is your life" is
Yeah,
what it was.
it was. So one of the Astros got to him, and it was Justin Verlander that was also on that call, and then add his family to it. And then the kid, when he makes his address, he just breaks down because he's so appreciative of
Yeah.
what ownership and Bill O'Brien, and the confidence they showed him. I mean, he looked like he was genuinely grateful.
Well, and that's why I loved it. One, he has a giving heart, as he's done so much charity work, and he even did something else this week. He was trying to help people that had been evicted from their homes in Houston, Harris County. But to see someone that appreciative,
Yeah.
and I mean, those tears were real. You can't help but pull for that guy. And I just, I keep thinking more and more of him, each season, and it was really cool to see that. So Patrick's been paid, DeShaun's been paid. Patrick's a $50 million a year man. DeShaun's a $40 million a year man. What does this mean for Dak, Bryan? Because you're the Cowboy fan. We're still waiting. They still haven't worked this out. Does this end with? Is it possible that Dak could leave, or do you think it's just he'll stay and it's just going to cost the Cowboys more money?
I don't see him leaving because they got nobody behind him. I don't think Andy Dalton is the future of the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys want to go into a season next year. They may slap the franchise tag on him again, but I can't imagine they're going to want to go into the season next year without Dak and with Andy Dalton being your starter. And, and unless you hit, the jackpot in the draft, that's going to be the situation. So I just don't see them letting him walk. They have offered him money. They've offered him good money, but he wants 4 years. They want him to sign for 5. And his agent has been like the Scott Boras of the NFL. They have not given on this. And it may be because he's been slapped with the franchise tag and bet on himself this past season. He decided he was going to play out the contract, and he had a great year. And under any other circumstance, any other NFL team would have given him what he wanted, just like the Texans did yesterday with DeShaun Watson. I understand the Cowboys have got some serious cap issues, and this is just going to make it tougher. But it drives me crazy that they paid Zeke because he forced their hand. They paid Amari Cooper. They paid all these players, but Dak Prescott is the same guy that DeShaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes are. This kid's been perfect. He's not said the wrong things. He's been a leader. He's been good in the community. He's won ball games. He's performed way above what anybody expected.
Do you think though this we're at this point right now, if the Cowboys had not nosedived at the end of last year and not made the playoffs, if they would have made the playoffs, because that's the thing, when we get into playoff football, we're seeing Patrick Mahomes and DeShaun Watson were in the AFC Championship game, and Dak didn't make the playoffs. Do you think that is what's holding the Cowboys back? Because outside of that, I don't know what else the reason is. He's won regular season games. He has the stats. The playoff success is not there.
Ryan, their defense was horrendous last year. It was not often. They expected their offense to have to score 30 points every ball game to have a chance to win. The defense is the problem last year. It wasn't Dak. Now they did.
I'm not a Cowboys fan,
No.
So I don't. This is as an outsider from this. I always think though the Cowboys' talent is made out to be better than it is. Like, I keep hearing how talented the defense is and how they have so many great young players. Yeah, and I don't see it. Like, they have talented players, but I'm not seeing, like, because I know there are people this year thinking the Cowboys have to be a Super Bowl team, and I just think that's unfair when they didn't even make the playoffs last year.
Well, I will say this. And I don't know how good they'll be, but I do know that they took a major upgrade in coaching. Okay.
Fair point.
Just bringing McCarthy in gives them a whole new level of credibility that never was established with Garrett. And I was not an anti-Garrett guy, but just 10
Right.
years is way too much for what he
Yeah.
delivered. So I do have a lot more confidence in the guys on the sidelines. Um, it could be that McCarthy just wants to kick the tires, see firsthand what Dak can do, and then they pay him. That's the only thing I can figure in this thing, and give him the deal he wants. I think Dak knows he's better off staying in Dallas than he would be going anywhere else. I mean, being the quarterback of the Cowboys, whether you get the contract you want or not, you get paid in so many other ways.
And the rest of your life, I mean, look what so many former Cowboys players have ended up getting to go do just because they were the quarterback of the Cowboys.
Exactly. I mean, Troy Aikman and Tony Romo are still, making money off of being quarterbacks for the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I do believe they're very talented offensively. Offensive line worries me a little bit. It's starting to get old.
And Collins apparently is out for a few weeks.
Yep. So I'm a little nervous about that and what that means for them. Defense has got to be better than it was last year, and I do believe that Mike Nolan is a better defensive coordinator than Rod Marinelli. I think the game had just passed him by. So I'm hopeful. Let's just put it that way. I'm hopeful, and the rest of the division is not good. So that's the other thing that gives me hope about the Cowboys. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win 12 games and crush everybody. They got to play better than they played last year. 8-8 just doesn't get it done. And their defense has got to be better than it was. We'll see.
I do think I was going through the teams and the schedules. I do think 9 to 10 wins can win that division.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, if they go 10-6, they should win the division. And like you said, that receiving core on paper, they look scary with Zeke. I'm a little worried about the offensive line. That's my biggest fear for them offensively, and defensively, they got to get better. So they will open up against the Rams this weekend. We'll see how they get the season started. So excited about the NFL. Quickly, NBA and NHL playoffs. I think one of the biggest surprises that I had was the Rockets thumped the Lakers in game 1. And then last night, they were down 21 and came all the way back to take the lead. They ran out of gas and lost that game. But, Brian, what we're seeing in these bubbles, there is the top seeds, the home court, you don't know what's going to happen. I think I saw the stat in the first 8 games of the rounds. What would have been home teams were 2-6.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really been an equalizer. And, we may see a matchup that we were not expecting.
Well, we expected Giannis and the Bucks to probably be the East champs.
Yeah, and they're down 3-1.
They're getting ready to get eliminated. Giannis may not even be able to play because of the ankle injury. So who comes out of the East, I have no idea. It looks like when it's all said and done, the one thing that the Lakers have, and I'm not a Lakers fan, but the Lakers have such a height advantage over the Rockets. And I think they didn't take advantage of that in game 1. Last night, they used that height, and the Rockets have no answer for that. And defense is kind of an afterthought for the Rockets anyway. So I'm really interested to see if the Lakers continue to lean on that height advantage now going forward. Okay, you got your win. Rockets are explosive, no doubt, but we've got such a height advantage with all these guys that at some point that's got to start, they can take it in the paint and be unstoppable. So it's just a matter of, can they hit more 2s in the paint than the Rockets hit 3s from, half court.
Right, which is all the Rockets seem to do. And Russell Westbrook was brutal last night, and yet he continues to shoot jumpers, which I don't understand that. And then hockey, I know
Stars.
Hockey's not the most exciting, I love hockey actually myself, but a lot of people don't. But the Stars in the Western Conference Final, they win game 1 over Las Vegas. So they're 3 wins away from going to the Stanley Cup. I actually remember well when the Stars won the Cup back in the late 90s. I was actually doing my first television internship in the Dallas area. I was actually there when they won the Cup. So it was really cool. And, Dallas kind of caught hockey fever back then. So it would be kind of cool to see. I don't know, maybe hockey fans think it's wrong for a Texas team to be in the Stanley Cup final.
Hey.
But they're 3 wins away from going back to the Cup for the first time in a long time.
The one thing I'll say about the Stars, I love watching playoff hockey.
Yeah.
Love watching Stanley
Overtime
Cup.
hockey is awesome.
Yes. And the other thing was the disrespect that the networks showed for Friday. Game 7, not only did it not make it to the NBC Sports Channel because they were showing some pre-Kentucky Derby preliminary race, okay? They shifted it to USA Network. Good luck finding the USA Network. They
No, I
played.
was actually in a panic because I wanted to watch the game. I had planned my day around watching it, and I couldn't find it. And then I finally figured out it was on USA.
A 3 o'clock game on a Friday afternoon. I mean, just the disrespect was just ridiculous. But I was so happy for the outcome of it. It was a fantastic finish. They played far better than I would have ever imagined, particularly using their backup goalie through this whole series to do this. So that's been cool. One real quick note: we lost another Hall of Famer yesterday, Lou Brock. I grew up watching Lou Brock back when base stealing was a prominent part of the game, which it isn't anymore. I remember when I was a senior in high school, he stole 118 bases in one season. Now you don't find teams.
That's incredible. That's an incredible number.
Teams don't steal 118 bases in a season.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember watching it, watching when he broke the record. One of the toughest players. He was a key figure in both of their World Series championships while he was with the team. So another one gone, had some terrible health issues over the last few years, had diabetes, had to have a leg amputated. So it's just Tom Seaver last week, Lou Brock this year. So all of my high school heroes are starting to go away here. So sad to see that. And then tomorrow, being Tuesday, September the 8th, is going to be the anniversary of Mark McGwire's 62nd home run, which is also ironically I watched it at the newsroom at KETK in Tyler and was going crazy. And then I got home and my wife told me my mom had passed away from a heart attack. So I'll never forget the day. And it happened a long, long time ago. I miss my mom, but obviously time heals. And but it was just so bizarre. It was such a bizarre day because you go from that euphoria to it was more shock that night because it was unexpected.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those weird days that is like a marker in your life you're never going to forget. But anyway, and yesterday, I forgot to mention too that yesterday was the day, 25 years ago, that Cal Ripken broke the record for consecutive games played. So you got all this history.
I can't believe it's been that long. Wow.
One other piece of history, and then I'll stop. It's on this day, I think it was 1979, First Sports Center on ESPN. First Sports Center. And think about how sports coverage has changed forever based on that first. I mean, you talk about primitive looking broadcast.
Yeah, they didn't know what they were doing.
The tape was rolling. It was just they had this really dinky looking little background with the ESPN logo on it, and you had these two very unattractive men on the air. And so, but that changed the world. We didn't know what it would become, and then they became the worldwide leader, and then they, I think, gave up a lot of that audience through some missteps, and now they're trying to gain it back. I don't know if they ever will, but at whatever it affected local sports forever. So,
yeah,
and
did.
You and I could spend 30 minutes talking about that. So I'll stop there.
So last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up, you were talking about history. We had some history yesterday. Novak Djokovic, if you're not a tennis fan, it's still a crazy story. Novak Djokovic, the 2 player in men's tennis, heavy favorite. The U.S. Open officials did all they could just to get him, stateside because the other 2 of the other top 3 players couldn't play. And yesterday he was disqualified, defaulted, as they call it in tennis terms, because out of frustration, after he lost a point, he turned and smacked the ball. It hit a line judge. Really, it looked like in the throat.
It did hit her in the throat.
She hits the ground gasping for air. And because he did that in the first set, mind you, he was DQ'd. And the #1 player, the heavy favorite, chasing history, he has 17 Grand Slams, I believe. They did all they could to get him there. and that one stupid mistake, he was done. And Ryan, I mean, it's never happened before for a number one player in a Grand Slam.
It's just insane. And you know, the bottom line on it, I'm glad the lady's okay, because man, it could have killed her. You know, it could have crushed her. When the way he hit it, and it hit her direct. You know, you look at all, and she was gasping. You know, and it was made even worse because there's no crowd, so it's silent in the arena.
And you can hear her because there's no crowd. You can hear her gasping for air, and his face as soon as he hit it. No one thinks he did it intentionally, hitting her. But he, you know, and it was funny because when I first saw it, I was like, why should he get thrown out for that? But then they obviously made the right call. And I mean, when John McEnroe was saying it was the right call, then you know he's probably gone over the line. Fortunately, though, she is okay. She's fine. But yeah, just crazy. I mean, the year 2020. I keep telling friends what else can happen, and then 5 minutes later, something else happens that I'm like, what? So yeah, if that's not 2020, I don't know what is.
Watching Kentucky Derby with no fans on Saturday, you know, my pastor yesterday said it on an online service. 2020, Uncle, you win. I give. I'm done. The sad thing is we don't know that this is going to be over at the end of 2020. So I don't want to take anything for granted. But hey, I know we got to run, but again, we are going to post these on Tuesday mornings before you get up. So you can find them on YouTube. Obviously we have, you know, we've sacrificed no expense as far as graphics are concerned. And, you know, we
still don't know what we have. We're just kind of having fun right now.
We are most definitely a work in progress. So I appreciate those who did take the time to watch. If you stayed with us more than 2 minutes, God bless you. And I hope your kids enjoyed watching the cartoon that you were. So we just hope if you do see it, it's posted on YouTube. Leave a comment, you know, call us idiots, whatever you choose to do, just anything, just to let us know that you watched, and we'll continue to try to evolve this thing into something that might be worth wasting your time with. So just thanks for watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, Bryan, thank you, and we will see you guys next week.
All right, and again, happy Labor Day.
Yeah.